I just got done reading Cher's Memoir, Part 1. It is fantastic. It's worth every penny. I read it cover to cover in 2 days, and look how big it is. I thought the story might be stale because we've heard her interviews for years. No, she revealed the down and dirty about everything. How dark Sonny was and how he might have been addicted to prescription drugs. His onstage persona was a lot different than how he was at home. And he actually had her tied up contractually so that she was working for him as an indentured servant, like a slave. The guy had issues, that's all I could say. The part that really resonated with me was the story about her mother, Jackie Jean, at birth, and then she changed her name to Georgia Holt. And she was married about 8 times, and she'd marry men with money, and so the kids and Georgia lived great, and then she couldn't stay with the guy for whatever reason. And so she left him, and then they were destitute. And the weight of the poverty and the struggle trying to raise those kids really resonated with me. And she had to make some unfortunate decisions regarding abortions. And I was in tears. I very rarely cry. And I was in tears over Georgia's struggle because that lifestyle, which I experienced being a single mother, is a real burden. It will drag you under. It is such a struggle to get by. And another thing, I like the part where she got on the roof and nailed her own shingles on the roof. Because believe me, that's how I live. I do a lot of DIY, and sometimes it costs me more than if I had paid somebody. Okay? Not my thing, really, but it's survival. And there was one story that had me laughing out loud, and tears were literally coming down my face. I don't remember that ever happening before, but she got into a fight with the neighbor, Georgia did, because the neighbor sent their dog Blackie to the pound because it barked all the time. So Georgia went over to her house and grabbed her by the hair and jerked her all over the place and threatened to beat the shit out of her. And the way Cher told it was priceless. I'm telling you, that was great. I also resonated a lot. Cher's story resonated with me because I was in Hollywood as a young girl, and a lot of the things that happened to her were very similar to my experience, but she was a lot luckier because she could sing. I wanted to go to Hollywood from the time I watched Ed Sullivan Show. I saw Sonny and Cher, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Elvis. I was going to Hollywood and I grew up, and big things were going to happen for me. And I did get there, and I did experience the predatory men that are there. I had somebody close to me who was trying to sell me into, groom me for, maybe that's a better way of saying it, into high-end prostitution. And I resisted, and that's why I got abused a lot. I can't even say it without shaking. And she pretty much went through it on a different level, not sexually, but with her career with Sonny. And she talked about going to Martoni's. And I went to Martoni's. It's no longer there. It collapsed during the Northridge earthquake a few years ago. I think it was on Cahuenga Boulevard, if I'm not mistaken. I thought it was just like any regular Italian restaurant with bottles hanging from the ceilings and red vinyl booths. I went there with music arranger Gene Page, and I had no idea, because we didn't have the internet in those days, how famous he was. His name was well known, but his work was. He was a child prodigy in music and gave numerous celebrities their start, including Barry White, Ray Parker Jr., and this young girl who didn't really want to go home, like me, whose name was Cher. And he gave her her first singing job on Phil Spector's song, You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling, although I can't hear it. I've tried, I don't hear it. But Cher kind of showed up in Phil Spector's studio and was kind of used as backup with some other people. And that eventually just morphed into this huge career, although she really didn't get along with him. No one did. She described one situation that was particularly chilling. She got upset because Phil illegally used her music, and when she went to his house to confront him, he took out a gun and started kind of waving it around in a threatening manner, and she left. Well, we all know he murdered that lady who was in his house. He ended up in prison for shooting her, someone that just visited his house like Cher did. And that was pretty chilling. It's too bad she didn't report that to the police right then. Might have saved that other lady's life down the road. So, Gene Page took an interest in me in a way that no one else ever has. And that man meant the world to me. And I think if I had stayed in Hollywood, he would have done for me what Sonny did for Cher. Because Sonny saw something in Cher too. First, he heard her sing. My voice wasn't in that kind of shape, but I had a friend say, well, if you'd stayed in Hollywood, what would you have done? Like I was worthless and had nothing to offer. Well, I could have turned letters just as well as Vanna White did. You know what I mean? You don't have to necessarily have this huge talent. These guys like Gene Page are geniuses for figuring out where you ought to go, what you ought to act in, or if you should sing, or what kind of songs you should sing. He could figure out where you fit, and he turned a lot of people like Anita Baker, the crowd at Motown. He knew them before they were famous. Marvin Gaye was a close friend of his. He could make stars out of people. His daughter wanted to write a biography about him, and she graduated in from Columbia University in English. And I gave her my information because I thought it would be a nice contrast to show what big stars thought of him, like Lionel Richie was a close friend of his, and then to show just what a hapless girl off the street, how wonderful he was to me. He had a great heart. And I used to go to Martoni's with him because my partner at the time told him I wouldn't eat, and I was getting dangerously thin. And we didn't hear about anorexia yet because Karen Carpenter hadn't passed away. We heard about anorexia once she died, but I wouldn't eat. And I think it was because it was the only thing I felt I could control. And Gene would take me to Martoni's, and I remember the first time he said, "What are you going to get?" And I said, "Water." And he says, I know, let's get a chicken salad. And if you like, I'll let you try it. And if you like it, we'll get you one of your own. So, believe me, I had never had anybody treated me like that. He was feeding me this chicken salad off a fork with this young girl sitting there having no idea he was one of the biggest guys in Hollywood. Years later, I felt bad that I never had a chance to get on American Idol. And then I thought, Melinda, these kids are on there to meet the kind of people you already knew. And one of them was Jean Page. So that really resonated. She would go there with Sonny. I've heard she got thrown out of there. Both of them did because they dressed weird. And so that's what I've been thinking a lot about today. I may have been able to do something as far as a career if I just hadn't choked. The difference between Cher and me, other than our looks and talent, singing ability, the difference was she was scared to death. And she sat there in the studio with Phil Spector, shaking like crazy and too afraid to sing, but she just did it anyway. And when she went out on stage, she was always looking at Sonny in the beginning because she was too afraid to look in the audience. She was scared to death. She just took a flying leap and did it anyway. And I'm first that'll tell you, I choked. I was so scared when anybody even told me, and Gene told me, he said, you're very pretty and talented. You just don't know it yet. And I didn't believe him. I thought, oh, this guy is so nice. Anytime someone asked me if I wanted to model or appear in a part for an extra or something like that, I think they're just trying to be nice. I didn't see it as, wow, someone really believes in me. And that's what happens when you come from a narcissistic family. May they rot in hell. I can't wait for Cher's memoir, part 2, that comes out November 2026. See you later.